Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Business Spotlight. Today I am really interested and looking forward to getting to know and speaking to a gentleman that we have on screen right now, Mr. Leo Campbell, whom is one of the founders of a fascinating business, Modern Baker, and their frankly, intriguing product, SUPERLOAF, otherwise known as the magic word, I believe, Leo. So please tell us a little bit about your business and about how yourself and Melissa came to bring this incredible product to marketplace. Welcome to Business Spotlight.
Thank you. Well, we may look like a food company, but in reality, we are a nutrition company. So our widget, if you want to call it that, is nutrition innovation. And we've spent the last 6 years working in stealth mode with labs all around the UK and further afield, working with leading scientists, looking at how we can improve nutrition in ultra-processed foods. And SUPERLOAF is the first proof of concept product that we have, that we have sort of put our intervention in to turn what is otherwise an industrial loaf into a much more nutritious, good for you loaf of bread. So go on, sorry.
I said fascinatingly. I was interested to see what you were going to say next, and maybe about where you fit into the market and so forth.
Yeah. SUPERLOAF, the reason it's taken so long to bring to market is partly because we keep finding new horizons, and therefore we have to kind of pivot and change our business plan along the way, but also partly because trying to get a product that is packed with nutrition into working on high-speed machinery is actually really quite hard. There are all sorts of technical things that we've had to overcome. So how it fits into the market is that it's now, SUPERLOAF is a product that looks and feels like the bread that most people in the country and in the Western world, well, it is the Western world staple food, the industrial loaf, the supermarket loaf. So it looks and feels like that. But actually it has a much nicer flavour. And as I've said before, its USP really is that it is actually kind of really, it's nutritionally dense. And we can talk about that more if you like, further down the line, about actually how that works and why that matters. Yeah, I'll let you ask the questions.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. Thank you for that. No, I'm intrigued to understand more about the density, the differentiation, the nutrition, because I think what we're going to lean into there for the listener, for our audience, is the reason why you have a place in the marketplace. So we're talking about the marketing value, the marketing differentiation. So can we come back to that, Leo, in a few moments' time? Would you mind telling me, because I'm interested to know more about yours and Melissa's story, because there's a really powerful underlying, I want to say, chapter there that's clearly speaking to the purpose behind the product. So would you mind sharing more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our journey started in a chemo ward. So about 10 years ago, I just met Melissa, and she was quite quickly diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer.
Okay.
And it wasn't long after that she was on a chemo ward. I was there with her for her first treatment when into the ward came the tea trolley, looking kind of every inch like something from a Carry-On film, except that what was on it wasn't remotely funny. It looked like they'd done a trolley dash in a petrol station forecourt and loaded up with everything in a packet that was full of refined carbohydrates. And that happened just at the moment that Melissa was kind of being told about the connection between refined carbohydrates and cancer. And, you know, I just remember she leant over to me and I mean, I won't repeat the words, but they began with WTNF. And we both resolved at that moment in time that there was something so fundamentally wrong that had come home to us at that moment that we both decided to repurpose our careers. And I mean, Melissa wanted to change her career anyway because of what had happened to her, and she wanted to just, you know, change the pace of life. Not that it's got any easier. And so we resolved to do what we could to try and see if there's anything we could do about the state of food and its relationship to, you know, to why it's so messed up. So how on earth can you, in a hospital, be giving people bars of chocolate and sodas when they've got tubes in their arms receiving chemotherapy for cancer, when it is scientifically very well known that, you know, that's a very bad thing to do? So, yeah, so I mean, look, it took a while for things to get moving because they do. And, but we decided on bakery as a sector because, for a start, it's, you know, well, what we realized was that the world didn't need another nut butter or birch water or whatever, because that's what the industry was sort of polarizing towards when it came to health and nutrition.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, that what we needed was it was all about staple foods and about democratizing the health benefit if we could indeed find it. So we threw ourselves into bakery. It's quite a convoluted story, but we opened up a cafe, or Melissa did, that proposition was entirely around health. Of course, we had queues out the door, everything was organic, and it was, you know, sort of stone ground and long fermentation, and we worked out everything about that. But then it dawned on us that it didn't dawn on us, we always knew that we needed to take it to the next level. So that was, in a sense, our proof of concept around the product, the branding, the message, the consumer, the whole proposition about health and, you know, and its relationship to the public and where the problems were. Mm-hmm. So we shut the cafe down, surprised a lot of people because they thought it was incredibly successful. And I guess it was, but it was always a temporary thing for us to just get our head around stuff. And so we just completely switched and we flipped our business model so we opened up this place, which is our R&D lab and office, and in Oxford. Yeah. And started applying for a government grants for deep research. I see. And that started this phase of the journey.
So have you had to, before I go to the next question, please, how's Melissa now, 2023, 24?
She's terrific.
Fantastic.
Everything's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Good. So
what would you have done if I'd given you a different answer?
That's a really good question. Honestly, it did go through my mind.
Anyway, don't worry.
It was a calculated risk, I would say, Leo.
No, she's great. She's great.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. So, fair to say that you've had to create a market, or not? In other words, you've come up with the concept, you've come up with the reason of why, to use Simon Sinek's brilliant book. And then you're forcing it into a market. It feels as though that didn't have a space for it yet. Am I right or not?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the bread market is completely dominated by 3 players in the UK. Yeah. And because it's become so operationally focused and commoditized, that the industry goes around and they just take lumps out of each other, and there's sort of literally no margin for innovation left in the business or in the sector. Yeah. So it's been very hard to get in. However, if you come at it from a consumer perspective rather than operations or anything like that, so if you survey consumers, random consumers, and ask them this question, you say, have you ever considered changing your relationship with bread for health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Between 65 and 70% of people answer yes.
Okay.
So there is a massive unmet need there. Practically everybody understands at some level that industrial bread is not a force for good when it comes to health and nutrition, and especially more recently, where the last year or so, with the term ultra-processed food has become really familiar to everybody, and industrial bread has become the poster child of ultra-processed food. It's on the front cover of.
How not to do it?
Yeah. So, so the market has kind of come our way anyway,
Sure.
and if you put our product in front of people, it's like when we first saw smartphones. We didn't know we needed them until we had one, and then we thought, "Where's it been all my life? This has answered."
We don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to exaggerate and say it's suddenly become easy or anything like that.
No.
But
Listen, I get it. Are you a B2B business or a B2C business?
yeah, so we have a listing in Marks and Spencer and Ocado. That's only recent. Our manufacturing, we don't do it ourselves.
Sure.
So we are a small, tight team. We have no interest in baking products, building bakery plant, or anything like that, or logistics. We know what we do well. So it's listed in Marks and Spencer, and I have to say they've been fantastic, absolutely fantastic. They get the whole health proposition, and they understand that nutrition is the key to it, and that actually we need to move on from the current HFSS orthodoxy and the nutrient profiling model. It's yesterday's model that is formulating all the foods we eat today. It's not solving the problem. We all know that, but kind of like no one seems to want to talk about it.
Machine, right?
And that somebody has to move beyond that model and start operating in that space. And M&S have come with us on that.
So for the small business owner that will be watching this business spotlight, Leo, the question was, are we a business to business operation, or are we business to consumer operation? It sounds like we've got B2B for distribution, but at the same time you've got a story that you're having to communicate to the consumer directly, or are you leaving the communication in the main to the retailer? How does it?
No. That's well, it's both of our responsibility. But
okay.
I mean, and the only thing we are, because we've got a brand in the marketplace, we're a business to consumer business. The fact is that a big plant bakery makes our product and delivers it and distributes it for us is almost like a choice rather than, it's not a strategy. It's not, well, sorry, it is a strategy, but it's not. I don't think that's the relevant element of our business model from a consumer. We are driving a brand. We're a challenger brand in the market, on the shelf of the supermarket. We are selling double at forecast rate already. So consumers are reacting well. We're getting great consumer feedback, incredible consumer feedback about the product and the proposition, of course, which is just as important to us. So we are, we are making a consumer product.
Yeah.
We do have a B2B side, which is in a sense a different business. We haven't separated them yet, which is that all of our innovation is contained in a pre-mixed blend of ingredients that when our producer makes SUPERLOAF, they call that off from a third-party supplier, and it comes in the back door, integrates into their production system, and leaves the front door as SUPERLOAF. So that blend component of it is something that we control. That is where we put our innovation into, and we're already on the next version of it. So currently we're on version 5. That's what's in SUPERLOAF. We're already working on version 6. Ken behind us in the lab space is doing work on that now.
Great.
And we know what version 7.0 will look like as well.
So, relevance to your contemporaries in the small business arena. I mean, when I say millions, okay, massive exaggeration, forgive me, a little bit of poetic license there, Leo. But of course, there are lots and lots of parallels for people here. Now, so you've had you guys have created a purpose, a mission, which is powerful. We understand that now. It's deeply rooted in, I think, I want to say, contemporary conscious thinking around health and lifestyle. It's wonderful. But you've been smart enough to build not only the product, but also the distribution, the channels, the marketing, the story obviously is clear. This is good. Now, if we take a typical small business that may have a similar concept, similar idea, what would you say? Not I don't mean in your arena, but let's say in a different arena, but they have the same passion, the same vision, or something similar. What's the critical aspect? What's the one thing that you would say you've got to get that right in order for your vision to reach the point where you're now at 7.0, for goodness sakes, right? So what's the one thing that you would share with your fellow business leaders out there?
Probably that that it all comes down to how good you are at hustling. You know, that there aren't any easy routes forward. There's no, if you try the conventional ways to get into a retailer or to get a manufacturer on board or to win win a grant from the government or whatever, if you just do it in the standard way, then it's very, very hard. You have to use your imagination, use your contacts, blag, do whatever you need to do. And of course, that always comes from the same place, which is your passion. So if you are driven and passionate about what it is you're doing, these things sort of fall into place and come much more naturally. But that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, you just have to
Go for an answer, right?
To hustle and hustle and hustle. It's no, if you can't do that, then you're going to be very lucky to. Well, we couldn't have done this anyway.
Marks and Spencers don't mean no until they've said it 7 times.
Well, they never say no because you do it in the right way. Where it's always they, you've got your one chance, and then you've got your one chance, and so forth. And you just got to make it land every time.
What did you do before you came into this space? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, my background has mainly been, well, I've been at the beginning probably of a dozen businesses through my career, startups. So I'm quite familiar with the idea of building a business. And most of that career was spent in advertising and ad tech, the kind of, and the drive towards, digital. But I don't do any of that now. I've had all sorts of involvements of different businesses through my career, but now one single focus.
So we talk a lot at Power Play about the serial winner, the person that's able to not win in business or sport or some aspect of life once, but multiple times. Now, there are some interesting facets to the serial winner. That's perhaps for a conversation another time. But what's coming through again loud and clear here for the listener, for the viewer, is the simple reality that it's one thing to create the product and the opportunity, it's something else to convert it, to have the ability to get it over the line, to create the commercial relationship and the opportunity. If you don't do that, you have nothing, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Answer this question for me. What's the most important aspect of growing a successful business? You've mentioned hustling, but actually getting the business moving. But what else would you say is critical to being successful?
Well, I mean, getting your funding right. So, and there's more than one lever when it comes to that. But obviously you have to have your funding right. And a lot of that is down to how you structure the business in the first place, the size of your team and the commitment of your team. So no one in our business still, even now, gets paid anything like they have been paid in the past. So we're all rolled up in the purpose, and we're all rolled up in obviously ownership and you know, the next stage of the business.
Yeah.
But not everybody's temperamentally suited to that. But by
Absolutely.
doing that, so if you're in a business like ours, inevitably you burn money until a certain point. So you know, you need your runway, and so you need to you know, for that you need investors who are driven like you as well, and are purpose driven and like your purpose, so that they will keep funding. And in our case, we've had 6 successive government grants that have also been a major pillar of funding the business.
Have you negotiated those grants personally, or through your own team, or did you use consultation? How did you access that money?
We've used consultants. So for the actual, you know, it's always our idea and our vision, but frankly, it would be inconceivable, really, for us to fill out those forms. It's an art, science, and 100%. Don't know what, you know. So yes, it is, and it's not something, you know, we'd need another employee if we wanted to do that, and would they be as good as a consultancy, you know?
Well, you're putting your finger on something else. There's a slightly different angle. What I was hearing there is that there are better things for Leo, Melissa, and the team to be doing, frankly, aren't there? You know, so let's think about that for a minute. How many business owners find themselves doing 10, 12, 15 pound an hour jobs in their own business instead of running the business, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's a parallel there.
Yeah, we still do those though.
Oh, interesting.
But you're right. I mean, our business model, as we would describe it, is that we have our DNA is all about that we're very good at outsourcing. So, and the interesting thing here is that much of what we outsource is science, and the scientific world is actually quite an interesting world, very inward-looking in our view. It tends to be very reductive in terms of firstly the work they do, but then secondly that there isn't any DNA or much DNA within the scientific community to then try and get their research applied into the real world. They have all the right vision and values and uncover interesting stuff, but are not good at translating into the real world. And also they are hamstrung. I've just come from a 2-day conference in Norwich at the Quadrum Centre. And actually, I did a talk there about what we're up to. But, you know, you can feel the pain of the scientific community all the time when we talk about our ideas and our vision, because we're not constrained by all the, in many cases, ridiculous layers of burden that they put on themselves before anything can, you know, can actually be considered to be even vaguely true. Whereas where we come from, I mean, we're working food, for God's sake. There's nothing controversial about anything that we have in a product or touch or whatever. And we're allowed to talk about things in a way that they can't. And it pains them half the time, but at the same time, it can inspire them. And when we get together, so when we find a good team to outsource to, it's incredibly productive. So the other team, what we are very good as a business, we know what question to ask, and we know who to ask, you know, ask it of.
Okay, so 2 things there. The number one, how did you, perhaps it's the wrong way to phrase this, but how did you find or develop the skills to navigate the scientific complexity? Because that's not your background. And the second question is, you have the answers, you know where to go and who to go to. Where did that come from?
We just had to figure it out.
Okay.
And when you say it's very different to my background, it's not really, because you know, in when we were an ad agency, we would get a brief from a client,
Yeah.
So we had a problem to solve in an imaginative way. If we
Yeah.
didn't do it in an imaginative way, we wouldn't win any business. And then we had to execute it. So we would have ideas that we would then have to figure out how to fulfill them. And if you think about it, it's exactly the same process. So
Yeah.
what is it we're trying to achieve? What's the problem? The difference is we're the client this time around, so we're solving our own problems.
Sounds like a again another parallel there for the listener to relate to is the key for adaptation. For you mentioned pivot earlier on, the ability to reinvent, to apply your core capabilities, but to a different scenario, different situation. Fascinating stuff, Leo. It really is what you guys are achieving. Talk to me about business planning. What kind of
Uh,
business planning are you guys doing? What methodologies? Are you going 5 years out, 10 years out, one year out? What are you doing?
all of that.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're pretty clear where this could all go to, but and we put the foundations in place for what could be an absolutely enormous business.
Mm-hmm.
What I haven't mentioned is that actually we've just won our sixth Innovate grant, and what that is to do is to take our nutrition technology that's in Superloaf and then apply it to a whole series of other food categories.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
the
Wonderful.
team now are very focused on working on breakfast cereals,
Yeah.
ready meals. We're working with yogurt. We've got the basic technology in place, the science behind it, and the relationships now with industry and a brand on the shelf, and a media who are willing to listen to us, and that now that the climate has come our way, while we've been quietly working on it. So we're now working in an era of recognition that ultra-processed foods need to change.
Yeah.
We by pulling all of that together. I talked for so long I've forgotten the question.
Don't worry, you answered the question. I'm happy with that. That's fine. Don't worry. I'm interested to just understand a little bit more about your business planning, though. So, how are you checking and balancing against your plan? Are you using a piece of software and regular meetings, or are you? Tell us. How do you do it?
We're a small team. We talk all day long, whether we're in the same building or not. We can finish each other's sentences. We have exactly the same vision and mission. So a lot of the management is done simply by the fact that we're talking all the time. Yes, sure, we have a weekly meeting.
Good.
But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about when you are grant driven and you have successive projects that all build on each other. The one thing, one of the brilliant things about being an entrepreneur is that you don't have KPIs because they're forever flexible. But the really bad thing about being an entrepreneur is that you don't have KPIs because they work. So
Absolutely.
when you have an innovation, all of our grants have come from Innovate UK. But when you have a project, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 years long, you can't change you have a program, and there's very little flexibility. So what happens is that program becomes your business plan. And so that's the spine, that's the cadence, that's the pace of everything. And you just have to fit everything around that.
Are you employing typical classic sort of financial and business controls, for example, budget versus P&L, or plan versus written plan versus check and balance? Are you going? Do you have a board of directors? Are you led by? Are you adding non-executive weight to your board? How does it work? What's the management structure look like?
So our core team is 4 people. Okay. We have another 4 people who we dip in and out of, all week long. Who and then we have another 4 people who are investors. So everybody has a role within the business.
That's 12 in total.
To a greater or lesser extent. Every single person absolutely loves what we're doing and trying to achieve, and therefore there's a huge amount of goodwill. And like I was saying earlier, in a sense, we're still in the phase where we try and contain our costs as much as we can to reduce our burn rate, so we don't have to dilute our equity at this stage of the journey too much in order to, sort of keep going.
So when did you actually trigger revenue? When did the revenue phase begin?
We've actually had revenue for quite a while because we do have another range of products in the market. So back in about 2018-19, we put a range of products in the market, but which was the best version of what we could see as being healthy then, which was organic, which was based on our product that was in the shop. So that sells in Planet Organic, Whole Foods, Selfridges, Fortnum's, Ocado. It's a very premium product line. We've moved on from that conceptually as a business, but actually, I think it sells 15,000 units a month. Is a business it all looks after itself. We don't run it very much. So we've always had a P&L, but it's obviously ramped up a bit more recently.
No, I can see that. That's fascinating. Interesting. I've got one more question. Actually, there's a couple more, but the primary question is around visualization, Leo. One of the challenges that we have in the small business world is that we're technicians, to use a cliche. Typically, we're not necessarily business experts, okay? So we'll often struggle with visualization. We may have some form of shall we say, a purpose or a reason, some type of dream or goal, but it probably isn't written down. It's probably not created in the form of a visual. So coming from your background, I'm intrigued. Have you guys created some type of concept or dream or vision board, some kind of tactile receptacle that shows where you want this product and this business to go?
It's in our head. It's in our DNA. I mean, the mission. I mean, if somebody asks us what is your business mission, our business mission is to become an impact unicorn by 2028. And the definition of an impact unicorn is to have a positive social impact on 1 billion people.
On 1 billion.
So, yeah. So it's not about money. It's about the positive social impact. And that is what we've built all these foundations for. That has been taken a long time, has been painful, has been hard work. And now with SUPERLOAF as our first proof of concept product on the market now, that is the beginning of the second phase. So that was all done in stealth mode, and now we're in scale up mode. We've just literally started that. So everything that we're doing now, or a lot of what we're doing now, is talking to other food category leaders, as in brands and the retailers, and building out a product portfolio. So there might be 30 products this time next year. There might be 10, there might be 50, but that's the direction we're going in.
Yeah, okay. I see where you're taking that. That's fascinating.
All with a special superpower in it.
Yeah, I got that. The magic word. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm intrigued by the fact that you're able to articulate such a powerful mission. You've got 4 years left of that vision in reality, 4, 5, 6, 7 into 2028. Where are you on that path? Are you satisfied with the progress? Are you ahead? How do you feel about it as a leadership team?
Well, if I tell you how big the problem is, of poor diet. So the UN's food agency just a couple of weeks ago published the numbers that the hidden cost of the food system globally is $13 trillion, and that 70% of that 13 trillion is are the result of health problems resulting from that. So that is essentially 7% of global GDP.
My goodness me.
Presently is being, I don't know, catastrophized, whatever, by the hidden cost of the food system. So that's how big the problem is. That's also how big the opportunity is to provide a solution. So that's the canvas that we are playing on. And there isn't anybody else in the world who has precisely our vision and our product. There are lots of people operating in different areas. And in fact, there are a lot of people operating in areas that are not helpful. Trying to solve the problem by using the existing framework that doesn't work. And that's one of our biggest bugbears. So you have traffic lights. Everybody wants green traffic lights or whatever. So if you go and look at the nutrient profiling model and the point scoring, the algorithm of the government to get green lights, you'll take sugar out and put substitute sugar in, and fake sugar in, and everybody now knows. So what's happening is is driving even more processed foods.
Yes, of course.
And that is not a good thing. But billions are being piled into doing that, and it's just pushing us further away from the solution.
So it's been in my mind to ask you for a few minutes, for a little while now. A product that's getting a lot of exposure, I'm even working with it myself, is Huel. I don't know whether you're familiar with that brand or product, Huel.
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah.
Forgive me for being condescending, but how does that work? How does that fit? What's your take on that product or that style of product versus your own?
I think the concept of a drinkable that can do a massive job in terms of resolving the problem of poor diet or the current food system is a good concept. What I don't agree with is that that a drinkable can be ultimately a food substitute. And the reason I say that is that you can get some fantastic short-term results through keto, through drinking your food. You can trick the body genuinely into massive improvements in the short term or medium term through quite extreme behaviors. But when you look at, and longevity is on everybody's lips now, suddenly it's become the next big thing. X Prize have just put 101 million prize for the next big idea around longevity and stuff like that. Most of these strategies have a massive impact and reduction on longevity. So you can get the short-term benefit, and it's all based on, human biology and evolution.
Yeah, I see the point.
Yeah. So, for example, a huge intake of protein, sure, you can, ketones and all that, it will have an effect on you, and it has a place. But long term, it will come at one hell of a cost at some point. So that's where I come into it. That's not to say that we wouldn't do a drinkable, but it would do a very, very different job, to a meal substitute.
And I think that's the piece of the jigsaw I was reaching for there, to be honest. It was to understand your twist on that particular channel or product marketplace.
Yeah.
So Leo, I mean, again, from the perspective of our audience, let's just summarize for a few moments here. We've got a gentleman and a lady that are coming from successful professional backgrounds, but very different backgrounds to where we are today. They've had the entrepreneurial seizure. They've had the realization that there is a serious need for a product, and they've had to go and A, create the product, B, create the space in the market for the product and figure out how to actually get that product in front of the consumer. Now, the reason I'm summarizing like this is because to achieve what you've achieved is a phenomenal thing.
Thank you.
But of course, what we really want people to do is to take the relevance out of your story and apply it to their local garage or their printing business or their vision for the next multi-million-pound tech operation. It's been fascinating to listen to how you've translated your concept into practical and frankly quite, I mean, when I say quite, I don't mean this in a condescending way, but it will sound like that. Quite a scalable, you know, I want to say leverage, large way in reality, far larger than most small businesses currently today will ever go. So I want to say, I hope that people that have listened to this program, this episode of Business Spotlight, can find the echoes, find the ripples that they can take from yours and Melissa's situation and apply to theirs. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or to close on to help the small business owner in a different genre, different area, actually learn from what you guys are doing, Leo?
I don't know. It's such a personal journey, this. I'm trying to think about when I've been doing other businesses through my career. And this is unlike anything remotely, you know, that I've done before. So,
therein lies the magic.
You know, dusting off. Well, sorry, that sounds patronising, and I don't mean that at all. Look, I think if you feel something strongly and you know how to, well, no, because you don't know where the end is. You just, I mean, the best definition I've heard about of entrepreneurship is that you embark on something without any regard to the resources available to you. And, you know, you make of that what you will, you know, because if you plan too much to become an entrepreneur, you'll never be able to do anything, because you can never plan for what is around the corner if you go into the entrepreneurial world. And it's just be brave, really.
Is it fair to say that you must have vision? You have to have the vision. You have to have the purpose. And then you said something very important earlier that everybody listening should write down, and that is, make sure you have your funding, your working capital, make sure you have your planning in place, make sure you have the right people in place, make sure you have the marketing and you have the conversion capability, the sales capability, the hustle. Fantastic stuff, Leo. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. It really has. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your brilliant story. And I think from everybody listening and from everybody in my organizations, we wish you absolutely the best of luck, and we will go out and we will buy SUPERLOAF and we'll give it a go. So fantastic stuff. Thank you very much for joining.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your time and your interest. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you again.